You ever think you know someone completely, only to find out that their entire life was just a carefully curated illusion? That was me. I was Beyoncé Knowles, not the celebrity, obviously, but a regular woman with a not-so-regular story. I used to live what most people would call a simple, fulfilling life. I had a husband, 3 wonderful kids, a steady job, and a cozy home with a white fence out front. Things weren't perfect, but they were good. Good enough to lull me into thinking that life couldn't throw me any major curveballs. Then, one crisp Tuesday morning, everything changed. I woke up like any other day, reaching out across the bed to find Mark, my husband of 7 years. The left side of the bed was cold. That wasn't strange in itself. Mark liked to jog early or sometimes sneak out to grab fresh bagels from that little place on 6th. But by mid-morning, the bagels never came. By lunchtime, I noticed something chilling. Mark's phone, wallet, and car keys were still sitting on the kitchen counter. Untouched. No call, no note, no clue. I tried to stay calm, convincing myself he might have just walked to the store or gone to see someone. But as hours passed, that gut feeling in the pit of my stomach tightened like a vice. By evening, I was calling everyone, his coworkers, his parents, even our next-door neighbors. Nobody had heard from him. Nobody had seen him. It was like he had vanished into thin air. The kids, Max, Chloe, and little Ava, were confused. Max, always the observant one, looked me dead in the eyes and asked, "Where's Daddy?" I didn't have an answer, so I lied. I told them he was busy with something important, that he'd be home soon. But soon became someday, and someday never came. Weeks blurred into months. Every day without Mark was a battle. I'd try to hold it together for the kids, brushing their hair, making them breakfast, packing school lunches like everything was okay. But inside, I was unraveling. The police weren't helpful. They logged Mark as a voluntary missing person. Their words. No signs of struggle, no evidence of foul play. So in their eyes, it was just a man walking away from his life. But how could he do that? How could he leave us like that, like we didn't matter? No explanation, no goodbye. I remember the nights most vividly. That's when the quiet would settle in like fog and wrap around everything. The house would creak with absence. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if Mark was alive, if he was scared, if he was hurt, or if he had just decided we weren't enough. The anger came and went in waves. Sometimes I wanted to scream. Sometimes I just cried quietly in the laundry room so the kids wouldn't hear. I started imagining all kinds of scenarios. Maybe he was kidnapped. Maybe he had amnesia. Maybe he fell into some secret life he could never tell us about. But no matter how wild my imagination got, nothing could have prepared me for the truth. Exactly 1 year after Mark disappeared, I came home from work with the kids in tow. Chloe was whining about wanting a snack. Max was dragging his backpack through the dirt, and Ava was half asleep in her car seat. Just a regular, chaotic day. Then I saw it, a single envelope sitting on our doorstep. No postage, no return address. Just my name. Beyoncé in Mark's handwriting. I froze. The world slowed down as I picked it up and read, "Beyoncé, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve a chance to explain. But if you're willing to hear me out, meet me at the old treehouse we built together, tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. Mark." I read that letter about 20 times that night. My emotions were at war. Anger, pain, hope, disgust. The audacity of this man to reappear after 12 months like it was nothing? Like we were just waiting around for him with open arms? Oh, hell no, I muttered to myself. But deep down, something stirred. Closure. That's what I needed. Not forgiveness, not even answers. Just a chance to look him in the eyes and tell him how bad he broke us. The kids saw the letter. Max asked, "Is that from Daddy?" I didn't want to lie again, but I also didn't want to give them hope. "No, baby, just an old friend," I said softly. That night, I didn't sleep. I tossed and turned, imagining what I'd say to him, or scream, or throw. I was a volcano of resentment ready to erupt, but I also had a plan. He thought I was just going to show up and listen? Oh no. He was about to feel everything we had felt, every ache, every cry, every unanswered question. This time, I was in control. The next day felt like a slow-motion movie. Every tick of the clock grated on my nerves. I kept glancing at the time, counting down the hours until 5 p.m. At 4:15, I dropped the kids off at my neighbor Carla's place. I told her I had something important to take care of. She didn't ask questions, just gave me that look, the one that said, "Be careful." By 4:40, I was driving down the dirt path toward the woods behind my childhood home. It had been years since I last saw the old treehouse, a little structure Mark and I built when we were dating, back when life was simple, back when I trusted him. As I approached the clearing, my heart pounded so hard it made my ears buzz. And there he was, Mark, leaning against the tree like some tortured poet. He looked different, thinner, beard unkempt, hair longer. His face held a weight I'd never seen before. "Beyoncé," he said, almost like a prayer. "I didn't think you'd come." I crossed my arms, staying a few steps away. "Don't get comfortable," I snapped. "You've got 5 minutes. Use them wisely." Mark's shoulders dropped. "I don't expect anything from you. I just need you to understand." I cut him off. "No, you don't get to ask for understanding. You disappeared. Do you get that? For a year. No goodbye. No warning. The kids cried for you every damn night. I held this family together with duct tape and prayers. And now you show up with some cryptic letter like you're the victim?" He opened his mouth, but I wasn't finished. "Where the hell were you, Mark? Who were you with? What happened that was more important than your family?" He looked down at this ground, took a breath, then another. "I got involved with some people. Dangerous people," he said quietly. "I saw things I wasn't supposed to see. I became a threat just for knowing. If I stayed, they would have come after you, after the kids." I blinked. "So your great idea was to vanish? Just ghost us? You didn't even leave a note." "I thought I was protecting you." "No, you were protecting yourself," I hissed. "You chose fear over family. You left me to pick up the broken pieces and lie to our children every day." Mark's eyes welled up, but I was stone cold. Then I leaned in. "You want to make it right? Then you're going to do exactly what I say." His brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "My plan," I said, my voice like steel. "You're going to live right here, in this treehouse, alone. No phone, no contact, just you and your guilt. For 1 month. You're going to feel what it's like to be isolated, forgotten, scared, like we did." His jaw tightened, but he didn't protest. "If that's what you need." "Oh, it is," I said, "and you'll get no pity from me." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, surrounded by silence and the shadows of his choices. That night, I tucked the kids in and told them Daddy was still away. But inside, I knew. He was just a few miles away, sitting in the dark, finally facing the storm he created. And weirdly, that gave me peace. The first weekend, I brought him some canned food, a blanket, and a jug of water. No conversation. I just handed the supplies over and left. He didn't complain, didn't beg, just nodded and took what I gave him like a prisoner accepting his sentence. Week after week, I visited. Each time he looked worse, more gaunt, eyes sunken. That cocky confidence he used to carry like a badge of honor, gone. All that remained was a man swallowed by regret. But here's the wild part. The more broken he looked, the more something shifted in me. Not forgiveness, not yet. But something. One Saturday, I arrived to find him sitting cross-legged with a bundle of torn paper tied together with string. "I've been writing," he said. "Everything. The truth, the lies, what I was thinking, what I saw." I didn't say anything, just stood there, arms folded. He held up a page. "Day 28, I wrote this last night." His voice trembled as he read. "Every morning the birds wake me before the sun does, and with each cold gust of wind, I remember the warmth I gave up. Last night I dreamt of Beyoncé's laugh, of Chloe learning to ride her bike, of Max sneaking cookies. But this treehouse is quiet, too quiet, and I deserve it." I didn't cry, but I felt the lump in my throat swell. I hated that part of me still loved him. I wanted to stay angry. Rage gave me power. But standing there, listening to the man who shattered my world whisper out his regrets in the same space we once built with laughter and love, it was harder than I expected. He kept reading, and I kept listening. And slowly, without meaning to, I began to speak too, not to comfort him, but to release my pain. I told him about the kids' birthdays he missed, the tears I had to wipe, the bills I had to juggle, the nights Ava screamed because she thought he was dead. He just listened, no excuses, no interruptions. By week 5, something between us had shifted. It wasn't reconciliation, it wasn't romance. It was something more raw, understanding. He wasn't the man I married, but maybe that was a good thing. Because the man I married disappeared, and the one sitting in that treehouse, he was fighting to come back. One afternoon, I climbed up and found him sketching with charcoal on old scraps of wood. It was a drawing of our family, imperfect, rough, but painfully beautiful. He looked up. I watch the kids from this window, hear them laughing in the backyard. It's the worst kind of torture. My heart ached, not out of sympathy, but because it was working. He was finally understanding what he'd done. And I was finally feeling what I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a year: hope. A few days later, Mark handed me a folded page from his journal. "This might answer some of your questions," he said. I unfolded it slowly. It read, "Beyoncé, I never wanted any of this. It started with a business deal. Old college friend, good pitch, quick money. But behind the scenes, it was tied to a criminal syndicate. I overheard something I shouldn't have. Routes, money drops, names. They knew I knew. So I ran. I thought staying away would keep you all safe. But every day, guilt ate me alive. Not a day passed without thinking of you, of Max, of Chloe, of Ava. I made a coward's choice. I see that now." I sat on the porch that night, staring into the dark woods, that letter clutched in my hand. So it was true. The danger wasn't some wild excuse. He had run from something real. And by coming back, he might have brought it with him. I couldn't ignore the goosebumps crawling across my arms. Later that week, while walking Ava to the park, I noticed a black SUV idling across the street, windows tinted, engine running. It gave me chills. Then the calls started. Blocked numbers, no voices, just silence and breathing. And finally one message, distorted voice, no name. "You think you're safe now? You're not." I rushed home, locked the doors, and ran to the treehouse. Mark was already standing at the window, his face pale. "You heard it too?" I asked. He nodded. "They found me." For the first time in months, we were united in fear. But fear has a way of sharpening the mind. And we were done running. Mark reached out to someone he trusted, an old college buddy named Brian, who now worked with the FBI. Carefully, quietly, he sent over everything he knew. Names, connections, drop points. Anonymous, of course. Within days, local news started reporting raids, big ones, syndicate hideouts getting exposed, arrests piling up. But we weren't celebrating just yet, because they were watching us. I noticed unfamiliar faces at the grocery store. Same silver sedan following us home twice. Chloe swore she saw someone peering through the school fence. Mark confirmed it. "They're watching to see if I'll talk." So we came up with a plan. If they were going to come for us, we'd be ready. We'd bait them. Mark composed a message, vague but potent, and let it leak through a secure channel. "If you don't back off, I'm handing over the full list. I have proof." We knew that would bring them in. But they didn't know the FBI would be waiting too. Brian and his team prepped for the takedown. Surveillance gear, snipers on rooftops, silent alarms. That night, we stayed awake, holding hands for the first time in months. "If we make it through this," I whispered, "we start over. Clean." He nodded. "That's all I want." That night felt endless. The quiet was too still, like the air itself was holding its breath. At 2:14 a.m., we saw headlights crawling up the hill. One car, then another, then a third. Mark watched from the treehouse. I was hidden in a surveillance van with Brian and his team parked a block away. My stomach was in knots. 3 figures stepped out, shadows in the mist. One of them held a briefcase. Another was speaking into an earpiece. Brian's voice came through my headset. Wait, okay, we've got a match." The men approached the treehouse. Mark stepped outside slowly, hands raised, playing his role perfectly. "Where's the rest?" one of the men barked. Mark didn't answer. Then, a flash, a sudden burst of movement. One of the men lunged forward. And in that moment, the floodlights snapped on. Dozens of agents swarmed the clearing. Yells, sirens, the sound of guns hitting the dirt. Chaos. And through the smoke and shouting, I saw Mark, alive, still standing. His face streaked with sweat and dirt, but his eyes locked onto mine through the trees. They had taken the bait. Among the arrested was the last person I expected, Mr. Thompson, our former neighbor. The friendly guy who used to lend us sugar. He was one of the top figures in the syndicate. Double life. Smiles by day, criminal mastermind by night. When the news broke, it was everywhere. Suburban man unmasked as crime lord in FBI sting. They never released Mark's name. Brian made sure of that. His role stayed anonymous, a ghost in the background. But we knew the truth. We moved shortly after that, packed up what little still held good memories, and relocated to a quiet town upstate. The kids didn't understand at first, but they adjusted. Kids always do, better than we give them credit for. Mark took a job teaching at a community college. I launched a small online craft business. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. And most importantly, it was safe. There were nights when the past crept in like smoke under the door. when I'd wake up in a cold sweat, half dreaming of tree houses and gunfire, and the sound of that voice whispering threats through the phone. But I'd roll over and see Mark beside me, breathing slow and steady. And I'd remember, we made it out. The final choice. One evening, we were sitting on the porch watching the kids play in the yard when a black car pulled into our driveway. My heart stopped, but it wasn't the past coming for revenge. It was Brian. He stepped out looking tired but satisfied. "We got most of them," he said. "But there's one more, the top guy. We think he's overseas." Mark sat forward. "What do you need from me?" Brian hesitated. "One last sting, a meeting point. We'll protect you, but we need you there to draw him in." I looked at Mark, he looked at me. Everything in me screamed no. But I also knew, if we didn't finish this, we'd never be free. So we said yes. One last game. The meeting was set in an old warehouse by the docks. Mark was wired. I was in the surveillance van again, gripping my seat so hard my knuckles turned white. Hours passed. Then finally, a limousine. A tall figure emerged. Shadows cloaked his face, but his posture screamed power. Mark stepped forward. "You came alone?" the man asked. Mark nodded. "Of course." They talked, calm at first. But then the man grew suspicious, raised his voice, reached for something in his coat. Brian's voice screamed through the radio. "Go, go, go!" Smoke bombs, screams, lights, gunfire. I couldn't breathe. Then silence. The smoke cleared, and there was Mark. Bruised, bloody, but alive. And beside him, cuffed and cursing in 5 languages, was the boss. It was over. For real this time. The new beginning. The months after were a blur of therapy sessions, neighborhood barbecues, and learning how to live without looking over our shoulders. Mark and I, we weren't perfect. We had scars, both inside and out. But we were building something real. One night, as we lay in bed, I turned to him and asked, "Do you regret coming back?" He looked at me and smiled. Every day I was gone, I regretted it. Coming back was the only thing I've ever done right. I didn't say anything, I just held his hand. Because in that moment, I knew we had survived hell. And we came out stronger. Not the same, but better. Together.